It is about hope. It is about hope. Look, you are right about all the things. It would solve all the problems. And we said it here first. Barack Obama for DNC chair. Write it down.
DNC chair.
Hey guys, welcome back to Trailblaze, where we talk about the 2028 presidential campaign. And we are here today talking about the 2028 presidential campaign because we got some news, right, Matt Butler?
Oh, I'm excited, Jamal. We finally have a DNC calendar to nominate our next presidential candidate. And it's very exciting news. I think, and I would say, yeah, it's a banger. It's definitely a banger. The Rules and Bylaws Committee really, really outdid themselves.
It's a scorcher. Yeah,
it's going to be great.
So, all right. So here's what I know. Let me just read off the first few states, just so we have them. Everybody's talking about the same thing. South Carolina on January 22nd, 2028. That'll be the first state that anybody gets to vote in, would be South Carolina. Nevada on February 1st. New Hampshire on February 8th. That is a big change, ladies and gentlemen, from most of the last 50 years. New Mexico, February 15th. Michigan, February 22nd. And Virginia, February 29th. So those are the first 6 states to go in the new nominating calendar for 2028 for the Democratic presidential campaign. So this is right up our alley, Matt Butler. This is what we do here.
Yeah, this is super great. It's going to be a 5-week sprint for these campaigns to get through these early primary states. I think we're going to learn a whole lot. It's going to be incredibly exciting, and you're really going to see who can come through this kind of gauntlet of early states. There's more states being contested in the early primary window than ever before. People were thinking the DNC was going to come with some mix of 4 states to be in this early window. They ended up going with 6, which is really surprising. You bring somebody like New Mexico in, who's never been an early primary state before, and so that's going to be a totally different setup. People don't know how to run primary campaigns. I shouldn't say they don't know how to run primary campaigns in New Mexico, but it's never been the focus the way it will be in 2028. So it's going to be very, very exciting. And we should say, New Hampshire,
so different. You've done
being
primary
third,
states,
there is some. Yeah. Yep.
No, go ahead, Matt.
So we haven't done New Mexico hasn't been up there before, and I should say New Hampshire is there's going to be a big question mark for at least a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months, on what's going to happen with New Hampshire, because New Hampshire has a state law that says that they must be the first primary in the nation, and the DNC has sort of taken this and said, hey, that's a cool story, but your state law has no impact on the way that we run our primary nominating process, and so that is not going to be the case. So if New Hampshire is not able to move their primary or self-fund a primary, which is another option that the DNC has put to New Hampshire, Delaware could slide into that third slot, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with New Hampshire at all. And the DNC also has a lot of very strict new rules to enforce this primary calendar. And so, the damage to New Hampshire and to any candidate that campaigns in New Hampshire would basically end a campaign, because the main one is anybody campaigning there is going to lose all of their early window delegates from all 6 states.
Ooh, that is like a sudden death opportunity. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, just you wouldn't be able to compete.
Yeah. So what is it? $270,000 if you go earlier and you move into the window or move out of your slot, unless you get fined if you were the state. So let's say New Hampshire does decide to go first and get ahead of everybody, they'd have to pay. They'd have to pay $270,000 to the DNC, which might be helpful these days because the DNC needs some money. So maybe everybody should move around. They could all pay the DNC more money, and we can get out of debt. The Democratic National Committee. So there's some controversy. There's some controversy here about this calendar. Of course, there always is. South Carolina going first, which is really moving up from like the third state place where it has been for the last few years. South Carolina going first, New Hampshire being bumped down to third. So here's my take. The first thing, and then Nevada going second. So what I understand is there was some debate going on in the Rules and Bylaws Committee and outside the room, some debate about whether or not, frankly, an African American target state should go first, a Latino focused state should go first. I think the compromise that they landed on was South Carolina goes first, but you get two states in that have more diverse populations, maybe more Latinos, and in New Mexico's case, also more Native Americans. So you have, you know, South Carolina may go first with more African Americans, but then New Mexico and Nevada are right in there in the top four. So I'm not sure that satisfies all the people who are advocating to move to first, but it is a deal. That's what happens in politics. You gotta make a decision. And this is the decision that they made.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody had to go first.
Go
Somebody was going to be disappointed. Yeah, somebody had to go first. Somebody was going to be disappointed. But I think that they've done a really good job of sort of engineering these first 6 states to be a good kind of nationwide contest, and to be able to see all different regions of the country, and to get a bunch of different voting blocks to be able to have their say in the primary process. And if you look at some of these numbers, this new window, the new setup, there's 2.8 million more Black voters that are going to have a say in these first 6 contests, 2.4 million more Latino voters, 7.7 million more non-college educated voters. And the list just goes on and on. Like they've done a really, really, really good job to increase participation, or the potential for participation.
So I'm going to say something controversial, which is, I don't think it was the best idea for South Carolina to go first. I'm not sure it's the best idea.
Tell me more.
Here's why I'm going to say. Yeah, here's what I'll say. Because South Carolina, the role it's played in the last couple of contests is that it's kind of, maybe it's the cooling saucer. Maybe it's the place where we kind of make the decision after seeing the first couple of contests whether or not South Carolina voters are going to put an exclamation point behind the nominee that's steaming out of those first couple contests, or if they're going to cool the jets on the nominee that's coming out of those first contests. But they've had a chance to sort of see how those candidates perform before they make their stake in the ground. And just for refreshment, that's where Barack Obama, he kind of did well in Iowa. He came to South Carolina. He lost New Hampshire, comes to South Carolina, does well in South Carolina, and that helps propel him. And with Joe Biden, we saw Bernie Sanders doing really well in New Hampshire and in Nevada and then in Iowa, though he split with Pete Buttigieg. We see that happening, and then we see South Carolina saying, "Well, slow down. We like Joe Biden." So, going first might be a little bit of a change for South Carolina's role.
It is a change for the role, but it gets to put them right in the spotlight. I mean, every single candidate is going to spend a ton of time in South Carolina. I mean, the main reason that campaigns end is because they run out of money, but they will all be spending money in South Carolina, and they will all be visiting South Carolina. It's not a super expensive state to campaign in. It's not a huge state to organize in. So you're really going to get, however, if we have 10 or 12 candidates, they're all going to play really hard in South Carolina. And that's going to be great for the state in terms of its kind of national presence. And, for issues that voters in South Carolina care about, they know that they're going to get to have their say in this election.
Well, so I'm from Michigan, as you know, and so Michigan moving up into that window is a big deal. I think one of the arguments against Michigan was that the Detroit media market is such an expensive media market, and the state is so large.
Yep.
So unlike these small, compact states like South Carolina or New Hampshire or even Iowa, I guess, although Iowa's bigger than people think, it takes a long time to get from, say, Detroit to Grand Rapids, or up north to the fingertips. So that is going to matter. So anyway, they put them as the number 5 state, and then for these states that go earlier, you really do. I got to tell you, I'm a romantic. I remember the days of New Hampshire and Iowa. Not that they should be first again, but something about just driving up and down into small towns and getting a chance to make your case, even when you've got a small candidate without a lot of money. Something about that has an appeal.
I think that's exactly right. And, going through the Iowa caucuses with the John Kerry campaign, I mean, that was an incredible victory for Kerry. And it was mainly based on our organizing and the efforts of John Norris and Jonathan Epstein and all of the people who were working in that campaign and really just had the state incredibly well wired. And they did such hard work, and we had an incredible field staff there. And, it's sad that that is gone, but I do think we have a much more representative early window now than we did when it was Iowa and New Hampshire deciding kind of who the front runner was going to be kind of going into the later states and the Super Tuesday states. So I think overall it's much more fair.
Yeah, that diversity is a big deal. I think we want to have more people have their hands on the steering wheel here. So that matters. And then Virginia, which we haven't really talked about, because Virginia's a weird state. It's not weird. I love Virginia, but it's a different state in the sense that it's got an incredibly big media market. You think about the Washington, D.C. media market, Richmond, and then like the Norfolk, Hampton Roads area. It's got big urban areas in like D.C., but it's also got it's a very rural state. It does still have a large African-American population, but also a large rural white population. And it's a state that Democrats have won and need to win, and maybe have struggled. Certainly Hillary Clinton struggled there more than we thought she would in 2016. Those numbers came in late. And the campaigns after that, Harris including, they just, the numbers were a little narrower sometimes than we had hoped that they would be.
Yeah, Virginia is a very interesting state. It's incredibly diverse, like you were talking about. The D.C. market is very expensive. I think this will be good for the U.S. Senate candidates because it's going to be really easy to get, just from D.C. to do events kind of on an evening in Virginia. So that's going to be good for them. But it is a state that we have held, even though has been a little bit close. And we've got the governor's seat and the legislature, and so that's what's going to make it possible to make sure that primary is held on that February 29th date.
Yeah, but there's something about Virginia that feels maybe a little more romantic than some of the other states. Because Virginia does still have the smaller towns. You can drive it in a day. You can get to, if you had to, you could get to Norfolk and back, in a day. It's a long drive, but you could do it, Virginia Beach. And so all of that feels very doable. I mean, it's a big shift for the Democrats. You think it's going to work? It's going to be helpful?
I think it is. I think that this is a really, really good calendar. I think they balanced it very, very well. I think Michigan is going to be a huge fight, and that is probably going to determine the winner of the entire contest. I think it's interesting that New Mexico is in there. None of the candidates that we are tracking, any of the 19 or so candidates, none of them have visited New Mexico in the last year. So this is kind of a curveball by the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee to put that into that calendar. And so now you're going to see people starting to travel there and starting to do, their kind of various party events, et cetera. So you'll start to see a lot more travel to New Mexico now.
I've campaigned in New Mexico with candidates, and it's a big state too. I mean, you got a couple media markets in there, Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and you get to Taos, which is great, and like all these different places. There's some old school communities in New Mexico, both Native American communities and obviously Mexican American communities, where people like to remind you they've been there for 500 years. You're like, they moved the line. We're not immigrants. You guys just moved the line.
Right.
So, it's a very different fun state. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. I mean, my guess is you'll see most of the candidates doing swings where they hit Reno and Albuquerque, or Las Vegas and Santa Fe, kind of on those same trips. They'll try to pair those together when they're going out west. Maybe it's we should talk about kind of winners and losers in this entire thing. I think maybe one of the winners is Mark Kelly a little bit, so because he's going to be, he's from Arizona, and so he's right next door to Nevada and New Mexico, and obviously with the kind of 2.4 million extra Latino voters or additional Latino voters, I mean, that could help Ruben Gallego as well if he decides to pursue a campaign for the presidency.
I will. So before we go, I got to ask you this. What do you think about what's going on at the DNC? There's a lot happening at the DNC these days, particularly people worried about the money.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of different stories coming out this weekend about financial troubles and also people coming to the realization that the DNC is going to have to start spending about, I think, $1.4 million a month starting after the midterm elections to retire the debt that they incurred at the end of last year. And so things are a little bit tough there for kind of the embattled chair, Ken Martin. Things are sort of smoothing out a little bit, but the stories were not particularly positive for him. And, look, the DNC is trailing the RNC by large margins, and that is not good for the party as we get ready for the midterms, and it's certainly not good for the party as we go into 2028. And something has to happen there. We've got to get some change into the DNC to get the fundraising back up.
Does that mean we do need a new DNC chair or we don't?
Well, I think that there's a couple different ways that you could fix it. I mean, obviously, I have been on this show advocating for Pete Buttigieg to come and kind of act as the general chair. I mean, we've had that set up for a number of different cycles where you have a general chair who's kind of a high profile, known candidate or known politician who's out there to do media and out to do fundraising. And I've thought, Buttigieg would be a fantastic chair, and this would be the right time for him to get in there. But I have a terrible idea. It's insane. I shouldn't say it's a terrible idea. It's an insane idea, and it will never happen. But Jamal, who is the most popular Democrat in the United States of America?
Other than me and you?
Other than me and you.
Barack Obama. Michelle Obama.
Barack Obama. Incredible fundraiser, super popular, brings people together. I know he has served, and he has the best job in the world. Former president of the United States, absolutely the best job in the world. Very tough to get, but the best job that you could have. I know it, but we are in a situation where democracy is on fire right now. We need everybody pulling. We need everybody helping. And I think that we need to ask the former president to serve as the DNC chair. It'd be amazing. The fundraising problems would go away overnight. He'd be incredible on TV, delivering a message. We're at a point where we are very fractured as a party. I think that he can bring some of those different kind of varying coalitions together. I mean, look, other than Michelle Obama, who says no to Barack Obama as chair if he wanted to do it? Nobody says no to that.
Yeah, except Barack Obama didn't really want to be the leader of the Democratic Party when he was the leader of the Democratic Party.
I get it. And look, he has done what he needs to do for the country. And if he doesn't do it, which is likely, I mean, this is a crazy idea. But if he doesn't do it, I get it. And he's, no shame on him. But if he did it, if he could come and serve one more time, it's just like 2.5 years. It's like it's easy. And he doesn't have to do any of the heavy lifting. Ken can stay in place and run the day-to-day at the DNC. Doesn't have to worry about fundraising. Doesn't have to worry about press. He can go out there. I mean, come on, who's better than Barack Obama on TV? There's nobody better. And who'd be better at fundraising?
It would be
fantastic. But we need him. The Democrats need him right now. And we've talked about, like, the Democratic brand is so bad right now. And we're at a place where we cannot afford to screw up these midterms, and we certainly can't afford to screw up the 2028 presidential election. So we need somebody to rehabilitate the party image. And I think Barack Obama is exactly the person who could do it.
Well, if nothing else,
I know it's crazy. It's crazy. It's not happening. But you know what? This show's about hope. This show is about hope, Jamal. The whole show's been about hope since the very beginning.
It is about hope. It is about hope. Look, you are right about all the things. It would solve all the problems. And we said it here first. Barack Obama for DNC chair. Write it down.
DNC chair.